A single dad mechanic, haunted by loss and struggling to make ends meet, fixed a stranger's car for free on a desolate road, never knowing she was a reclusive billionaire, but when she returned the next day, it wasn't just with a reward, but with an offer that promised to mend more than just engines. It promised to mend a life, and perhaps, 2 broken hearts. Liam Callahan knew the language of worn gaskets and faltering engines better than he knew how to soothe the ache in his own chest, an ache that had become a permanent resident since Sarah, his wife, had been taken by the fever 3 winters past. Now, his world revolved around his 6-year-old daughter, Lily, a miniature sunbeam with eyes the exact shade of her mother's, and a persistent cough that worried him more than any overdue bill. His small garage, Callahan's Care, nestled on the less traveled edge of Oakhaven, was more a testament to his skill than a thriving business. Grit and grease were his daily companions, the scent of oil a familiar perfume. This particular Tuesday, the November wind cut like a blade, carrying the scent of snow and the weight of unpaid notices tucked into his visor. Lily had woken with a temperature, her small hand hot in his. The specialist appointment in the city loomed, a dark cloud of expense he hadn't yet figured out how to navigate. He'd patched old Mr. Henderson's sputtering pickup for a basket of late-season apples and a promise of payment next month. Kindness was a currency Liam understood, even if it didn't keep the lights on as reliably as cash. He was just closing up, the chill seeping into his bones when he saw it, a sleek, dark sedan, impossibly out of place on this forgotten stretch of road, steam billowing from under its hood like a dying breath. His first instinct was to ignore it, to hurry home to Lily. But Sarah's voice, gentle and insistent, echoed in his memory. "Everyone deserves a helping hand, Liam, especially when they're stranded." He sighed. The sound a small white puff in the frigid air, and turned his own aging truck towards the disabled vehicle, the tools in the back clattering a familiar, reassuring rhythm. The driver's side window of the luxury car glided down, revealing a woman whose tailored coat probably cost more than his monthly earnings. Her face, framed by dark, impeccably styled hair, was etched with an impatient frown, her eyes sharp and assessing, like chips of expensive ice. Eleanor Vance, though Liam wouldn't know her name or her net worth for some time, felt the biting wind as an affront, the stalled car, a betrayal by technology she paid handsomely to obey. "Can I help you?" Liam asked, his voice calm despite the cold that was already numbing his fingertips. He didn't see wealth. He saw someone stranded, someone vulnerable to the rapidly falling temperature. "My car has stopped," she stated, the clipped tone suggesting this was a problem someone else should have foreseen and prevented. "I have an important meeting." Liam nodded, ignoring the edge in her voice. He knew that tone, the sound of someone whose world rarely offered them inconveniences. "Pop the hood, let me take a look." He moved with an easy competence, his worn jacket no match for the wind, but his hands sure and practiced. Under the hood, the culprit was surprisingly simple, a burst coolant hose, likely old or faulty. "Looks like a coolant hose let go," he explained, already reaching for his toolbox. "I might have a universal one back at my garage that'll fit. It's just up the road, not a long fix." She eyed him with suspicion. "How much?" Liam paused, then shook his head. "Don't worry about it. Just glad I saw you before it got too dark or colder." He worked efficiently, his breath misting around him, his knuckles raw against the cold metal. He spoke little, his focus absolute. Eleanor watched him, a strange mixture of annoyance at the delay and a reluctant flicker of something else, surprise perhaps. The men in her world didn't get their hands dirty, not like this, not without a hefty invoice attached. When he was done, the engine hummed back to life, smooth and strong. "Should hold you fine to get where you're going, and to a proper dealership," he said, wiping his hands on a rag. "No charge." Eleanor stared. "No charge? That's unusual." "Just doing what anyone should," Liam replied, a faint smile touching his lips. "Someone helped my wife once when our old car broke down miles from home. Never forgot it. Just pay it forward sometime." He gave a small nod, already turning back to his truck, eager to get to Lily. "Drive safe." Eleanor Vance drove away, the warmth from the now functioning heater, a stark contrast to the lingering chill of her encounter. Liam Callahan. The name echoed in her mind, as unfamiliar and out of place as the grimy rag he'd used. "No charge, pay it forward." The words were an anomaly in her lexicon, a language she'd long forgotten, if she ever truly knew it. Her penthouse apartment greeted her with sterile silence, the panoramic view of the city a glittering, indifferent landscape. Her meeting had been rescheduled, her day disrupted, yet it wasn't the inconvenience that pricked at her. It was the mechanic's quiet dignity, the unhesitating generosity. Her world was one of transactions, of calculated risks and leveraged advantages. Kindness, in her experience, was usually a preface to a request or a subtle form of manipulation. Yet, this man had asked for nothing, expected nothing. He'd spoken of his wife, a hint of sorrow in his voice that felt more genuine than any emotion she'd witnessed in years. She walked through her vast, empty rooms, the art on the walls curated by a consultant, the furniture chosen for its statement rather than comfort. A gilded prison, a friend had once called it before that friendship, too, had become a casualty of Eleanor's relentless ambition. Marcus Thorne, her company's ambitious COO and a constant, subtle threat, would have scoffed at such sentimentality. He believed kindness was a weakness to be exploited. Eleanor sank onto a silk chaise, the city lights blurring. The memory of Liam Callahan's calloused hands, capably fixing her problem without a thought for recompense, was a pebble dropped into the still, deep waters of her guarded heart. It was unsettling. It was intriguing. She found herself thinking of the way his eyes, though tired, held a steady light. He hadn't seen Eleanor Vance, CEO of Vance Holdings. He'd seen a woman stranded, and he'd helped. The simplicity of it was profound. That night, sleep eluded her. The image of his worn jacket, the faint scent of oil and honest labor, lingered more strongly than the expensive perfume on her vanity. The next morning, Liam was surprised to see the same dark sedan pull up outside his small garage. Lily was feeling a little better, coloring at his workbench, her cough softer today. He'd managed to make a decent breakfast, and the sun, though weak, was a welcome change. Eleanor Vance stepped out, looking even more formidable in the daylight, her expression unreadable. "Mr. Callahan," she began, her voice smoother than the previous day, less brittle. I wanted to thank you properly." She held out an envelope. Liam instinctively put his hands up. "No, really, ma'am, it was nothing. I told you. Please." She insisted, a flicker of something vulnerable in her eyes. "It was not nothing to me. You were a significant help." He hesitated. The envelope looked thick. It could mean Lily's specialist visit without the gnawing anxiety. But his pride, and Sarah's memory, made him resist. "I appreciate the thought, truly. But my wife always said, kindness isn't a transaction." Eleanor looked taken aback, then a small, almost imperceptible smile touched her lips. "Your wife was a wise woman." She paused, then seemed to make a decision. "All right, then perhaps you'd consider something else. I find myself in need of someone discreet, reliable, and skilled with mechanics, someone trustworthy. My current arrangements are unsatisfactory." Liam frowned. "What kind of arrangements?" "I travel a great deal. I have a small collection of vehicles. They require maintenance, and sometimes I require a driver who understands more than just how to turn a wheel. Someone who values privacy." She named a salary that made Liam's breath catch. It was more than he made in 6 months. It would mean working for me directly, based at my estate primarily, but also travel. His mind reeled. The estate? This woman was clearly far wealthier than he'd imagined. "Why me?" he asked, the question blunt. "Because yesterday," Eleanor said, her gaze direct, "you had an opportunity to take advantage of a situation, and you didn't. You showed integrity. That's rarer than mechanical skill, Mr. Callahan, and far more valuable to me." She wasn't offering charity. She was offering a position based on a quality she perceived in him. It felt different. Liam's first instinct was to say no. The world Eleanor hinted at, estates, collections of vehicles, private drivers, felt alien, a universe away from his grease-stained overalls and the comforting clutter of his small garage. He looked over at Lily, humming softly as she meticulously colored a picture of a lopsided bluebird. Her small, trusting face, the slight shadow under her eyes from her recurring cough, they were his compass, his true north. This salary, it could change everything for her. No more agonizing over specialist fees, no more cheap filler meals, perhaps even a small yard for her to play in, something he'd only dreamed of providing. Old Ben, his former mentor who occasionally dropped by, would call him a fool to refuse. But the thought of leaving his independence, his small, familiar world, was daunting. "It's a very generous offer, miss. I don't even know your name," he admitted, a flush rising on his neck. "Vance. Eleanor Vance," she supplied, a hint of amusement in her tone. "The money is significant, Mr. Callahan, but more than that, I am offering stability. And, I believe, mutual respect." He thought of the predatory gleam in the eyes of the tow truck driver who tried to charge him triple for a simple tow last year when his own truck had broken down. He thought of the condescending bank manager who'd denied him a small loan to upgrade his diagnostic equipment. Integrity, she'd used that word. He hadn't heard it directed at him in a long time. "I need to ensure Lily is taken care of," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "School. Childcare if needed during travel." Eleanor nodded. "Of course. We can arrange for the best. Consider it part of the package." Liam took a deep breath, the scent of oil and metal suddenly feeling like the past. He looked at Lily again, who chose that moment to look up and gift him a radiant smile. "Okay, Miss Vance," he said, a strange mix of trepidation and burgeoning hope swirling within him. "Okay, I accept." The handshake that followed was firm, businesslike, yet beneath the professional veneer, Liam sensed a flicker of something else in Eleanor's cool eyes, relief, perhaps even a touch of something akin to anticipation. The transition was swift. Within a week, Liam found himself standing before the imposing gates of the Vance estate, a sprawling property that looked more like a national park than a private home. His small truck felt comically out of place on the pristine, winding driveway. The Vance estate was less a home and more a monument to wealth. Manicured lawns stretched like green carpets towards a horizon punctuated by ancient oaks. The main house was a symphony of stone and glass, imposing yet strangely sterile. Liam was shown to a modern, fully equipped garage that was larger and cleaner than his entire old workshop, filled with vehicles that gleamed under soft, recessed lighting. His living quarters, a comfortable apartment above the garage, were luxurious by his standards, but felt impersonal. Lily, after an initial period of wide-eyed wonder, missed their cozy, cluttered little house. Eleanor Vance, he soon discovered, was not just wealthy. She was Eleanor Vance, CEO of Vance Holdings, a global corporation whose name was whispered with awe in financial circles. The realization hit him one afternoon when he saw her picture on the cover of a business magazine left in the main house library. The enigmatic Eleanor Vance, revolutionizing tech, guarding her privacy. He felt a jolt, a sense of being out of his depth, almost tricked. This wasn't just a rich woman needing a mechanic, this was a titan of industry. He'd fixed a coolant hose for a billionaire. The irony wasn't lost on him. His work was demanding but straightforward, keeping Eleanor's fleet in perfect condition, driving her to meetings in the city, sometimes waiting for hours. He saw less of her than he expected. She was a whirlwind of activity, always on calls, always focused, her public persona one of cool, unassailable competence. Yet in the rare, unguarded moments, he saw flashes of the woman from the roadside, a weariness in her eyes, a tightening of her jaw when a call brought bad news. One evening, she found him in the garage, meticulously polishing the chrome of a vintage Aston Martin, a car she rarely used. "You treat them like they're alive," she observed, her voice softer than usual. Liam shrugged. Everything has a story, a history, just needs to be listened to. He didn't know that Marcus Thorne, her ambitious COO, was at that very moment orchestrating a subtle campaign to undermine her, spreading rumors of instability, trying to force a vote of no confidence. Eleanor was fighting a silent war, the pressure immense. She found herself seeking out the quiet competence of her new mechanic, his calm presence, a strange antidote to the vipers in her boardroom. One late night, after a particularly brutal video conference, she walked into the garage, not to give an order, but simply to escape the suffocating opulence of the main house. Liam was there, sketching designs for a custom tool rack. "He's trying to push me out," she said suddenly, the words raw, unbidden. "Thorne, he thinks I'm losing my edge." Liam looked up, surprised by her candor. He saw not the CEO, but a woman under siege. "What he thinks doesn't make it true," he said simply. Her eyes, usually so guarded, held a flicker of vulnerability. "Doesn't it?" The late-night confession in the garage became a turning point. Eleanor found herself sharing more with Liam, not strategic details of her corporate battle, but the weight of it, the isolation. Liam listened, offering not solutions, but a steady, non-judgmental presence. He spoke of Sarah sometimes, of the strength she'd possessed, the way she faced her illness with a quiet courage that humbled him still. He talked about Lily, her innocent wisdom, her uncanny ability to find joy in the smallest things. Eleanor, in turn, began to see beyond the grease-stained hands and quiet demeanor. She saw a man of profound integrity, his values as solid and unshakable as the ancient oaks on her estate. His simple pronouncements, like, "Truth has a way of showing itself, Miss Vance, you just gotta give it space," held more wisdom than the platitudes offered by her expensive consultants. She started making small changes. She insisted Liam and Lily join her for a simple dinner in the main house kitchen, not the cavernous dining room. Lily, initially shy, soon chattered happily, drawing pictures for Ellie, a nickname that made Eleanor's lips curve into a rare, genuine smile. Liam watched them, a warmth spreading through him that had nothing to do with the perfectly cooked meal. He saw a loneliness in Eleanor that mirrored his own, albeit one born of different circumstances. Her gilded cage was, in its own way, as restrictive as his former financial struggles. Marcus Thorne's machinations, however, were escalating. He saw Liam's growing influence, not as a personal bond, but as a potential weakness in Eleanor's armor. Thorne began to plant seeds of doubt about Liam among the board members, hinting at an inappropriate relationship, questioning his background, his suitability to be so close to the CEO. One afternoon, Eleanor received an anonymous package containing grainy photos of Liam meeting with a rough-looking acquaintance from his old neighborhood, a man he'd helped years ago, who had since fallen on hard times. The implication was clear. Liam was untrustworthy, possibly dangerous. Eleanor felt a cold fury. She knew Thorne was behind it. But a sliver of doubt, planted by years of betrayals, pricked at her. Liam, sensing her distress, asked, "What's wrong?" She showed him the photos. His face paled, then hardened. "That's Danny. I lent him money for his kid's medicine last week. He's had a tough run." He looked directly at Eleanor, his gaze unwavering. "If you believe this filth, then I guess I misjudged you too." The air crackled with tension. It was a test, not just of her faith in him, but of her ability to trust anyone again. The pressure from Marcus Thorne became relentless. He engineered a critical systems failure in one of Vance Holdings' new flagship data centers, timing it perfectly to coincide with a crucial investor presentation. Panic spread through the company. Thorne publicly questioned Eleanor's leadership, subtly suggesting she was distracted, her judgment clouded. He called for an emergency board meeting, clearly intending to oust her. Eleanor was stretched thin, fighting on multiple fronts. The board was wavering. The fabricated evidence against Liam, though she dismissed it to his face, had created a subtle undercurrent of unease among her allies. "He's trying to break me," she confessed to Liam one evening, her voice strained, her usual composure fractured. "He thinks if he hits me from enough sides, I'll shatter." Liam looked at her. seeing not the powerful CEO, but the woman who had been kind enough to give Lily a puppy, the woman whose eyes softened when Lily laughed. "He underestimates you," Liam said quietly. "And he underestimates the truth." The day of the board meeting arrived, gray and ominous. Eleanor prepared for war, her face a mask of steely resolve. As she was about to leave, Liam stopped her. "Miss Vance, Eleanor, there's something I found in the service logs for the data center. Something that doesn't add up." He'd been remotely reviewing the maintenance reports for the building, a habit from his old garage days, always double-check the basics. He pointed to an entry, a supposedly routine system flush an hour before the crash, authorized by a junior technician who, Liam had discreetly discovered, was Thorne's nephew and deeply in debt. "This flush, with these parameters, it's not standard. It's almost like it was designed to overload the backup regulators." Eleanor stared at the log, then at Liam, a new light dawning in her eyes. "You think Thorne orchestrated the system failure itself?" "It looks like a deliberate sabotage," Liam stated, his voice firm. "And this entry is the digital fingerprint. It was a long shot, but it was something tangible." At the board meeting, Thorne delivered a damning indictment of Eleanor's leadership. He presented his case for her removal with smug confidence. Just as the vote was about to be called, Eleanor played her hand. She presented Liam's findings, the anomalous service log, the connection to Thorne's nephew. Thorne blustered, denied, but the evidence, coupled with his known ambition, cast a dark shadow of doubt on his own integrity. One of the board members, an old friend of Eleanor's father, called for an immediate, independent forensic audit of the data center logs and Thorne's recent communications. The tide began to turn. Thorne's confident smirk faltered. He saw his meticulously planned coup unraveling. That evening, as the investigation began to confirm Thorne's treachery, Liam found Eleanor by the lake on the estate grounds, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and purple. She looked exhausted, but a profound sense of relief emanated from her. The forensic audit was swift and damning. Marcus Thorne's digital trail, along with coerced testimony from his terrified nephew, painted a clear picture of deliberate sabotage and a calculated attempt to seize control of Vance Holdings. He was summarily dismissed, his career in ruins, facing potential criminal charges. The crisis had passed, but it had irrevocably changed Eleanor. She had faced down betrayal and emerged stronger, not just because of her own resilience, but because someone had unconditionally stood by her side, someone who expected nothing in return. Liam had not only offered emotional support but had, with his keen eye and practical knowledge, provided the very key to her victory. A few days later, Eleanor found Liam in the garage, Lily happily helping him sort wrenches by size. "Liam," she began, her voice softer than he'd ever heard it, "I owe you more than I can say. You saved my company. You helped me save myself, I think." Liam met her gaze, his own eyes warm. "You did the hard part, Eleanor. You chose to trust. And you fought." A comfortable silence settled between them, filled only by Lily's cheerful chatter. "The offer I made you," Eleanor continued, a faint blush rising on her cheeks. "The job. It doesn't feel adequate anymore. It never really was about just the cars, was it?" Liam smiled. "No, I don't think it was. My father used to say," Eleanor mused, "that the best partnerships aren't built on contracts, but on shared values and mutual respect." She took a hesitant step closer. "Liam, what I feel, it's more than gratitude. You and Lily. You've brought light into a place that was dark for a very long time." Liam's heart, so long guarded, felt like it was expanding. He reached out, his calloused hand gently taking hers. Her skin was soft, but her grip was surprisingly strong. "Eleanor," he said, his voice thick with emotion, I think what started on a cold roadside might be something more." Lily, sensing the shift in the atmosphere, looked up from her wrenches and beamed. "Are you going to be friends forever?" she asked innocently. Eleanor knelt, her eyes glistening. "I hope so, sweetheart. I very much hope so." The offer had indeed transformed It was no longer about employment, but about building a life together, a family forged in unexpected kindness and tempered by shared adversity. Liam's financial worries were a distant memory, but the true wealth he'd found was in the warmth of Eleanor's smile, the security of their bond, and the bright future that now stretched before them. A future that included a loving partner for him and a devoted mother figure for Lily. Their new life unfolded with a quiet grace. The vast estate began to feel less like a monument and more like a home, filled with Lily's laughter and the comforting aroma of Liam's occasional attempts at cooking Sarah's old recipes, with Eleanor often joining in, surprisingly adept once she relaxed. The change in Eleanor was remarkable. The icy facade had melted, revealing a woman of deep warmth and surprising humor. She still ran her company, but now with a renewed sense of purpose, prioritizing ethical practices and employee well-being, often citing a very wise mechanic as her inspiration for looking beyond the bottom line. Liam, while ensuring Eleanor's vehicles were pristine, also started a small community outreach program, using one of the estate's empty outbuildings to teach basic auto repair skills to underprivileged youth from Oakhaven, funded by a grant from Vance Holdings, an idea Eleanor had embraced wholeheartedly. He never lost his humility, his grounded nature a constant source of strength for both of them. They weren't a conventional couple, perhaps, the billionaire CEO and the former roadside mechanic, but their connection was palpably real, built on the bedrock of that first selfless act. One crisp autumn afternoon, almost a year after their first meeting, they stood by the same stretch of desolate road where Eleanor's car had broken down. Liam had brought Lily, and they were releasing a kite, its bright colors a stark contrast to the now fading autumn landscape. Eleanor watched Liam's strong hands guide the string, his face alight with joy as Lily shrieked with laughter. "Remember when you told me to pay it forward?" Eleanor asked softly, slipping her arm through his. Liam smiled, pulling her close. "I do. I think," she said, her voice filled with a quiet happiness. "We both did." The initial act of kindness hadn't just fixed a car, it had mended broken pieces in two separate lives, forging a bond stronger than any steel. It had shown them that true wealth wasn't measured in stock portfolios or square footage, but in the capacity to give without expectation, to trust without reservation, and to love without limits. The wind carried Lily's laughter, a joyful sound that echoed the hope and new beginnings that had sprung from a simple, unexpected act of grace on a cold, forgotten road. Their story was a quiet testament, a reminder that sometimes the most profound journeys begin with the smallest acts of human connection, and the greatest offers are not of money, but of the heart. The story of Liam and Eleanor serves as a powerful reminder that kindness is a language understood by all, a currency that enriches both the giver and the receiver in ways material wealth never can. It speaks to the resilience of the human spirit, the courage to trust after pain, and the transformative power of seeing beyond surfaces to the true worth within. If their journey from a desolate roadside repair to a shared life filled with love and purpose touched your heart, if it reminded you that compassion can bridge any divide and that second chances are always possible, please consider liking this video and sharing it with others who might find inspiration in their tale. Subscribe to our channel, Soul-Stirring Stories, for more narratives that celebrate the beauty of human connection and the enduring strength found in empathy and unexpected grace. Here, we believe that every act of kindness, no matter how small, has the potential to change a life, or even two. Sometimes the most beautiful love stories and the most profound life changes begin in the most unexpected ways, often when we simply offer a helping hand without asking for anything in return. We'll see you in the next one, where another soul waits to be seen, and another heart waits to be stirred.